are getting settled in, we're going to get started, and we ask that you do so. Oh, hold on a minute. So anyway, my name is Donna Lipscomb, and we're happy to have you, those of you who are in the room, as well as everyone that's on the web. I'm with the Office of Communication, Outreach, and Development in the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, and I'll be the facilitator for today's meeting. What that really means in real terms is if you're talking more than the allotted time, I'm going to say, thank you so much for your information, and we'll move on. So please note that that's really what my role is as a timekeeper. So, but I thought facilitator had a nicer ring to it. Anyway, your voice is extremely important to us, and we are really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I am going to give my colleagues a chance to introduce themselves, but first, I want to give you a few housekeeping rules this morning. Our meeting, first and foremost, our meeting is being recorded as well as transcribed, and both the web reading and the transcription is going to be posted on our web. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to us, and only tell us things that you're okay with having public, okay? We do have restrooms, but they are a bit of a distance, and they are located, if you go out the back door, make a right, go down the hallway, and then it's a little to the right. You'll find them there, and there are water fountains there as well, and there's a water fountain if you kind of go to the left here as well. On your way down, you might have noticed a kiosk. That's where if you did not bring your lunch, you can get lunch. We actually found out that you could pre-order, and I think a number of you have asked for pre-ordered your lunch, so that'll make things much better because we have experienced some lines. So for those of you pre-ordered, yay! And it's simple like sandwiches and coffee, but we are not going to have a break prior to lunch. So this is an informal meeting, so if you need to get up and move around, please do. We ask that you silence your cell phones. But if there's something you need, please leave. We have 2 overflow rooms, and we have a room that you can, if you're tired and you need to kind of sit back and rest, if you just go out and ask the people at the registration desk, they'll direct you to those. A reminder, and I think you guys have probably, this is probably just not necessary, but the tables are reserved for patients and their family and the caregivers. So if you are not one of those, if you could please sit to the back or get into one of the overflow rooms so we have plenty of room. For a house, we don't go a lot of detail. It's always kind of the big picture. My FDA colleagues are going to present a few presentations, and this is going to help set the context for our discussion today. We'll have opening remarks, and then we'll hear about the initiative that brings us these patient-focused meetings. We'll have a presentation on the background of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Following this, I will provide you an overview of our discussion format. Now, this public meeting is a little different than some of our others because the purpose is we want to have a conversation with you. But our part of the conversation really is going to be listening. We've got our listening ears on, and as one of my friends' son used to say, click, click, we've got them in listening mode, and that's really what we're going to do. So we're very general questions we might be able to answer, but really this is to hear what you have to say and what your concerns are so we can use that to inform our decision. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have 3 different topics that we'll talk about. In the morning are the effects of alpha-1 deficiency that matter most to you. we'll have some discussion questions around that. Then we'll have break for lunch, and then this afternoon we'll talk about your perspectives on current approaches to treatment. And then finally we'll talk about your perspectives on participating in a clinical trial. Throughout these sessions, the Alpha-1 Foundation did have a survey which they are going to be presenting results to throughout the session. So after the first set of remarks, they'll be presenting, and then after the second, and so on. Now, as you can see, we do have an open public comment period. And this is the occasion for those of you who want to speak, or perhaps you had some off-topic comments you wanted to make. We've outlined a allotted time for you. The sign-up list is on the registration table, but there's only room for about 15 people to speak, which will give everybody about 2 full minutes. I know that's just a lot of time, but this is a first come, first serve opportunity, so if you think you might be interested in saying it, or if you just want to make sure your voice is heard, please go outside and sign up, and then we'll have our closing remarks. So this is really exciting for us. I'm glad we're getting started, and we're just going to kick it off now, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Ginette Michaud. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Blood Research and Review in the Center for Biologics.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ross Pierce in the Division of Hematology Clinical Review in the Office of Blood Research and Review.
Good morning, I'm Paul Mintz. I'm Director of the Division of Hematology Clinical Review in the Office of Blood Research and Review at CBER.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Goldsmith. I'm the Associate Director of the Rare Diseases Program in the Office of New Drugs in CEDAR.
Good morning. My name is Berkman Shahiner, and I'm a Senior Scientist with the Office of Science and Engineering Labs at the Center for Devices and Radiological Health.
Good morning. My name is Jim Bana from the Office of Orphan Products Development here at FDA.
Hi, I'm Tony Dermowitz from the Division of Pulmonary Allergy and Rheumatology Products in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much. Okay, so we are going... We are going to not advance the slides, it appears. There we go. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Ginette Michaud.
Good morning again and welcome to FDA. We're absolutely delighted to see the huge turnout this morning. The FDA is very pleased to host this patient-focused drug development meeting on alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Our goal today is to give patients and their caregivers the opportunity to share with us your experience with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. We invite you to tell us about the symptoms that are a part of your daily life, the impacts of your disease on you and your family, and your perspective on currently available treatments. This is an important meeting between the FDA and the patient community, and so we're very happy to see the large turnout. We have approximately 250 participants here in the room, as well as close to 600 individuals online who are joining by webcast. I want to acknowledge you, the patients, your families and caregivers, and those who advocate on your behalf. We thank you for your willingness to engage in today's conversation. I also want to recognize the participation of healthcare professionals and representatives from the pharmaceutical industry. Your presence here today shows your interest in directly hearing from patients. You may know that FDA is responsible for protecting public health by ensuring the safety and effectiveness of human drugs and biological products. We're also responsible for advancing public health. We do this by helping to speed innovation and to make medicines and to approve medicines that are found to be safe and effective. And while FDA doesn't itself develop new drugs or conduct clinical studies, our role is to oversee and facilitate their development. It's because of these responsibilities that we want to gather your perspectives on alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. We want to hear your thoughts on currently available therapies. We want to learn directly from you, the patient, your family, your caregivers, and your advocates. Your input will help us better understand the burden that alpha-1 places on you and your family, the ways that you best try to manage your disease, the side effects of your treatments, and how your current treatments could be improved. FDA has held several meetings like this one, and I can say that at every meeting we learn from patients. We will consider your input when we advise manufacturers on their development of a new drug and on the design of their clinical studies. We will consider your perspectives when we assess the benefits of a new drug and its risks, and your input will be helpful in identifying unmet needs or new ways to measure a drug's effects in clinical studies. In the past few years, FDA has hosted several patient-focused drug development meetings on a variety of diseases, and thanks to the participation of patients and caregivers, such as yourselves, we've learned a great deal about the burden of disease and gaps in the treatment of these diseases. Today, it's your turn. I urge you to participate fully in today's conversation. This is your meeting. We are here to listen to you, patients and caregivers, because you have important information to convey and a very unique view on how your life has been changed by this disease. No one can better tell us about the benefits and shortcomings of treatments that exist today. And so in closing, I want to thank my colleagues at the FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, and my colleagues from other centers at FDA, the Center for Drugs Evaluation and Research, the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, and colleagues from the Office of the Commissioner. All have helped in offering their time and efforts to prepare for this meeting. I also want to recognize the Alpha-1 Foundation for helping us to reach out to you, the patient community, and for compiling the survey data that we will all hear about later today. And so, in closing, I wish you a very successful and productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to ask Pujita Vaidu. I had it phonetically too, sorry.
Hello everyone, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I am Pujita Vaidya from the Office of Strategic Programs in CEDAR. We are the office that leads the Patient-Focused Drug Development Initiative. This initiative helps to facilitate FDA dialogue with patients about what matters most to you. So people living with the disease have a direct stake in the outcomes of drug development. They also have a unique ability to contribute input that can inform drug development and evaluation. FDA recognizes a need for a more systematic way of gathering patient perspective on their condition and treatment options. This input helps inform the collective understanding of this therapeutic context of drug development, which is important to our role as regulators and the role of developers and others throughout the drug development process. So FDA's Patient-Focused Drug Development Initiative is part of FDA's commitments under the 5th authorization of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act. As part of our commitment, the Center for Drugs and the Center for Biologics are together convening a total of 24 meetings in a 5-year period, each meeting focused on a specific disease area. These meetings are providing valuable information in their own right. They can also help advance a more systematic approach to gather this type of important patient input more broadly. So to determine the disease set for the 5 years, FDA nominated candidates and sought public input. With the public input and review division input, FDA identified a set of 16 diseases for the first 3 years and then initiated another public process to identify an additional 8 more diseases for the remaining fiscal years 2016 and 2017. So here's a list of the meetings that are being conducted as part of the Patient-Focused Drug Development Initiative, including meetings already, here are the meetings that have already been conducted and meetings still to be conducted. To determine the set, so of the meetings conducted to date, we estimate for each meeting that about 30 to 80 patients or patient representatives have participated in person and about 100 to 300 people on the webcast. However, from this meeting, it might be higher now. So for the CBER meetings on the list, they include hemophilia A, B, and other heritable bleeding disorders. And there is one coming up in fiscal year 16 or 17 on hereditary angioedema. And I do want to put a plug in, as you see here, that we do have a meeting scheduled for October 15th that CDER is leading on non-tuberculosis mycobacterial lung infections. So each meeting, including the discussion questions, is tailored depending on the specific condition, aiming to elicit patient perspectives on patients' conditions and treatment approaches. In the process, we consider unique characteristics of the disease context, including the current state of drug development, the review division's specific interests, and the needs of the patient population. Depending on FDA's interests and current happenings, some meetings have focused on relevant current topics in drug development, such as cure research in the case of our HIV meeting. And from these meetings, we've definitely learned that patient involvement and participation is critical to the success of these meetings. Each meeting results in a report that captures the patient input from the meeting in the participants' own words. This input, by providing important patient context, can support FDA staff as they conduct their benefit risk assessments for products under review, advise drug sponsors on their drug development program, or identify opportunities for further discussion. We also believe these meetings can have value for development more broadly, for example, by helping to identify areas of unmet medical need, such as aspects of patients' condition that is not currently being addressed with current therapies. This input may also help developers as they identify or create tools used to measure the benefit of potential therapies. And in a little while, Dr. Pierce will be giving a background on the disease area. And so we have seen that potential. So I'd like to thank you all again for coming here today. And now I'll hand it over to Donna. Thank you.
And now we're going to hear from Dr. Ross Pierce.
Good morning. Welcome. It's a tradition at these meetings to present an overview of the condition being discussed, but I recognize that I'm here with a room full of experts, so please bear with me when I present information, much of which you're already no doubt intimately familiar with. So let's see if I can figure out how to advance the slides. So alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, also called alpha-1 proteinase inhibitor deficiency or A1PI deficiency. What is it? An autosomal codominant genetic disorder with over 100 different genetic mutations. The codominant from a severe gene whereas if you inherit the severe deficiency from both parents, you will have a profoundly reduced level in the serum, in the blood, antitrypsin, an enzyme, and you'll have a substantially increased, but not a guarantee, of developing emphysema during your lifetime, and you're at increased risk of developing liver disease associated with alpha-1 PI deficiency. This condition has a highly variable clinical presentation, not only because of the large number of mutations, but even among patients who have the identical homozygous inherited condition from both parents, the severe reduction in the serum and lung levels, many of them will go on to develop emphysema, but not all. And liver disease is much less common than lung disease, but still very important. So the prevalence of AATD is between 60,000 and 120,000 individuals here in the United States that have this severe deficiency, and this corresponds to about 1 in 2,000 to 5,000 live births. The vast majority of individuals with AATD go undiagnosed. Doctors in the United States still do not routinely screen patients with emphysema or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease for AATD, but we hope that screening will continue to be more widely adopted. So a typical experience of many of you, no doubt, has been that you had to go to a series of several different doctors complaining about your lung symptoms before you were diagnosed, and the same thing can go with patients with liver abnormalities, because it's not the first thing that doctors look for because of its comparative rarity. So what does this enzyme, what does this protein do in the body? Well, it's a key inhibitor of another enzyme, neutrophil elastase, that breaks down proteins in lung tissue and can also break down proteins elsewhere in the body. In normal lungs, neutrophil elastase is present in very low levels, but in the lungs of people who have the severe deficiency of this protein, the neutrophil elastase is present at higher levels and exerts a more important effect. In addition, alpha-1 antitrypsin has a variety of anti-inflammatory properties, but the exact importance of those in the body at this point is still incompletely understood. So what is the mechanism of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency lung disease? Well, this comparative lack of alpha-1 antitrypsin to inhibit neutrophil elastase results in a faster breakdown of lung tissue with the development of emphysema. So what is emphysema? It's a condition in which the peripheral air sacs that exchange carbon dioxide for oxygen, the alveoli, become enlarged as their walls are destroyed, resulting in overinflated lungs, partial airway collapse with airflow obstruction. So this measurement that we call the FEV1, the forced expiratory volume in 1 second, how much air you can, what volume of air can you blow out from full inspiration, trying to blow it out as fast as you can, that becomes progressively reduced as the condition progresses. And a decline in lung density, mass per unit volume. But I could also mention that during exacerbations or pneumonia, the lung density may temporarily increase because of increased cells and water in the lungs. So, what are symptoms of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency? And again, here I'm speaking to the choir. Emphysema, a form of chronic pulmonary obstructive lung disease, includes shortness of breath, reduced exercise tolerance, exacerbations resulting in increased shortness of breath, increased sputum production, increased pus content of the sputum, asthma in some but not all patients, and at later stages of the condition, there can be wasting and malnutrition can develop. So as I mentioned, there's a highly variable clinical presentation with this condition, and many individuals with severe AATD do not develop emphysema during their lifetimes. But Especially if you are a smoker, you are at much higher risk, and you may develop symptoms in your 30s or 40s or earlier. And in non-smokers, developing your first symptoms in your 50s or 60s is not uncommon. We estimate that roughly 15% of patients develop liver disease that's clinically overt with this condition. So what is the mechanism? Well, the various genetic mutations, particularly the Z mutation, results in an abnormally folded or a protein. So these mutant molecules have a different shape, and they accumulate in liver cells because of their altered shape, causing liver inflammation, cell death, scarring, and sometimes cirrhosis. And this chronic inflammation may also predispose to liver cancer in the case of liver disease due to Aatd. In childhood, infants may present with poor feeding, poor weight gain, hepatitis, and jaundice. Signs and symptoms such as failure to thrive and elevated liver enzymes in about half of affected children. But in children, the majority recover and remain healthy throughout childhood, but some do progress to cirrhosis. And there is thought to be an increased risk of liver cancer. In adults, there is scant published literature on adult Aatd liver disease, but the liver disease in adults may occur without a preceding history of having had childhood liver disease. It probably increases with advancing age, and the presence of cirrhosis from, I think, autopsy series has been as high as 40%. Some of that would be unrecognized. The management of the liver disease of Aatd, there is no specific therapy that is approved, unfortunately. And this is something that we're very hopeful will be addressed in the future with specific therapy. But for the moment, standard supportive care for liver disease that has compromised liver function would include efforts to prevent or treat bleeding episodes, because clotting becomes abnormal in severe liver disease, blood clotting, abdominal fluid accumulation, itching, malnutrition, fat-soluble vitamin deficiency, infection, recognizing and addressing slowed growth, falling off your growth curve as a child, and screening for and treatment of, if necessary, liver cancer. So one wants to avoid smoking and secondhand smoke, and alcohol avoidance is especially important with more advanced liver disease. In the presence of severe liver compromise, it may be necessary to lower the doses or avoid some medicines which are predominantly broken down by the liver, such as Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol. Screening for liver cancer with ultrasound is recommended every 6 to 12 months if scarring, cirrhosis, or liver enzymes are elevated. But less than a quarter of patients with liver disease will require liver transplant at some point during their lives. Now we'll turn to the management of lung disease due to Aatd. The cornerstone of therapy has been intravenous augmentation therapy administered weekly according to the FDA dosing guidelines. Inhaled alpha-1 PI has been under development for many years, but it still remains experimental. So the only way that people can get access to that is through clinical trials. Smoking avoidance, inhaled bronchodilator use, and judicious use of corticosteroids if necessary, particularly for exacerbations. Administration of influenza and pneumococcal vaccination, so the pneumonia vaccine. Use of supplemental oxygen as needed. Pulmonary rehabilitation. Management of acute exacerbations, as I mentioned, can include brief courses of steroids, early antibiotic therapy, and sometimes respirator support is necessary in the ICU. In severe cases that have progressed, lung transplantation is a therapeutic modality that we use. So why is it called augmentation therapy? Well, it's a replacement therapy, but in the recommended doses, it does not bring the levels in your blood and lungs all the way up to normal. So it augments those levels from the low levels that you have to begin with. The theory predicts that if you achieve a balance between the level of alpha-1 antitrypsin and the level of neutrophil elastase, that you will, and you achieve this balance in the lung, the site of destruction of the lung tissue, that you would slow down or stop the destruction of lung tissue and slow the progression of emphysema. But at currently recommended doses of approved alpha-1 proteinase inhibitors, these may not be sufficient to completely inhibit excess neutrophil elastase that we see in patients with a severe deficiency compared to normals. So what are some things that we know about alpha-1 PI augmentation therapy? We do know that it increases the blood and lung levels of Aatd, and that's really how the indication reads in the package insert. It's generally well tolerated in terms of side effects. It has a very low risk of viral transmission that really has not been a problem. It is inconvenient, as we will hear from you, requiring regular intravenous administration, with the package insert recommending weekly dosing. What are some of the things that we don't know about alpha-1 PI augmentation therapy? We do not know the optimal dose or the optimal blood level or level in the lungs to achieve, given the burden of neutrophil elastase in affected patients' lungs and the variability in that from patient to patient. We do not know the effects or understand the effects of this therapy at different stages of the lung disease, whether it would be better to start treatment earlier, for example. We do not have good information on the long-term effects on lung function. This has been evaluated up to 4 years in duration, but the jury is still out as to those effects. The trials have been of somewhat limited size here to date. The effect of augmentation therapy on exacerbation frequency and severity, we need more information in that. So far, there has not been an indication from randomized placebo-controlled trials that augmentation therapy reduces the frequency of exacerbations, but the results have been inconsistent across different trials with different products. And the effect of the symptoms on symptoms and of quality of life remain uncertain at this point, as does the effect on mortality. So in 20 minutes, there's a lot that I cannot go into about this condition, so please forgive me for my omissions. But I'd conclude this talk by saying that alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency can be a serious disease characterized by progressive lung and or liver disease that may ultimately require lung or liver transplantation, or maybe both. There is no specific treatment for liver disease of Aatd. Augmentation therapy with alpha-1 proteinase inhibitor is the only specific therapy for lung disease, but at currently recommended dose, its effects on symptoms, exacerbations, quality of life, exercise tolerance, and mortality remain uncertain. Ongoing studies provide opportunities to determine whether higher doses of alpha-1 PI administered intravenously and or by inhalation may improve symptoms and function, actually make people more able to do more things and to feel better. Additional therapies need to be developed to address the unmet medical needs of patients with Aatd, lung and liver disease. And I'm really looking to industry to provide some excellent innovation in the future with respect to the types of therapies that we can expect to see for this condition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all of our panelists. We really appreciate you sharing. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to go over kind of the format of our discussion. What we're going to do is going to start with the effects of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. And we're going to ask our panelists to really speak on this, the symptoms that they experience that have the most impact, specific activities they're unable to do, how the condition and symptoms have changed over time, and what worries them most about the condition. And then we'll come out and ask questions to you, the audience, those of you on the web, people on the phone. We'll get a full discussion going. Then we will talk about, this afternoon, we'll talk about current approaches to treatment. We'll have another panel come up, and they're going to talk about what they're currently using to treat their condition. that does, you'll know that yours took. It just takes a little bit of time. If you're on the web, you should have that opportunity as well. And although people are still polling, we ask that if you haven't had a chance yet to vote, do it right now, because we are going to close it now. So if you didn't get a chance, it's okay. This is not scientific. We're not using these results. They don't in any papers. All they mean is they're a springboard for us to use. Well, not surprisingly, the majority of people here outside the D.C. area, but within the U.S. But we do have 8% of you who came from outside the U.S., so thanks so much. We really appreciate you coming. What are the web results? Do we have is there anything different?
No, it doesn't work.
No, we're just getting it now.
Well, we'll come back to the second demographic on them, okay?
No, the web results are the same, basically, than the people in the room.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Next question. This is one of the great parts. You can check all that apply. So again, which of the following best describes your condition? And if you're a caregiver, answer as the caregiver, please. Or A is I have alpha-1, but no active disease. B, I have emphysema. C, liver disease. D, both liver disease and emphysema. And E, I'm a family member or caregiver of someone. And so if you have to vote multiple, again, you wait for the light to just see the light. When it disappears, you can vote again. Super, and we're going to give everybody there. We're going to stop now, and well, goodness, 50% have emphysema and 32 are family. Thank you. What about the web? Do we have those results tallied? Okay, well, when they come up, we'll come back to you on that. Finally, what is you or your loved one's age in years? This is that tricky one. You see 0 to 12. At least it's a range, so it's easier. So A is 0 to 12, B 13 to 16, C 17 to 49, D 50 to 64, and E 65 or older. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Well, we have a representation all around, but heavy in my personal favorite 50 to 64 age bracket. Let's both get up there. Not that I'm saying anything, but do we have responses from the...
Yes, magically, we're the same on the web, 50 to 64 groups.
It's magic. Excellent. Thank you so much, Howard. Well, and finally, male or female? We're going to get what's our demographic here? Okay. Go ahead and see what our results here are. Very close. It looks like a split, so if there's a dance later, everyone will have a partner. I'm glad to hear. What about on the web? Do you have similar results?
It's a little bit more female.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, that gives us a good idea of the web, and now we're going to hear from you guys, and we're real excited. We're going to this is our first panel. They're going to introduce themselves when it starts. These are the questions that they're going to be responding to. And Roger? Oh, you do?
Okay. All right, my name is Roger. Responding to the first question, shortness of breath is now and has been for several years the most significant symptom that I have encountered. I was diagnosed at the age of 26 with COPD and with alpha-1 antideficiency at the age of 42. Now at 67, the progress has been slow and subtle. I no longer play golf because it's harder to breathe and tires me out quickly. I use oxygen at night and also sometimes during exercise activities. Managing travel with oxygen can be difficult and complicates air travel to the point where I don't want to fly commercially if I can avoid it. I must also say that exacerbations are of great concern too. It is my understanding that any of these events will reduce lung capacity, and augmentation therapy is of critical concern to all alphas. Losing the infused enzymes, which I call my little soldiers, means coming face to face with extended hospital stays. I am currently at less than 30% and can't stand to lose what I have left. All alphas must protect themselves from flu, colds, humidity, extreme cold or heat, smoke, chemicals, and the list goes on ad nauseum. For question 2, I miss my golf. Alphas face many obstacles on a daily basis. Stairs come to mind immediately. Walking from parking lots, through the malls and stores, carrying bags or luggage, and travel. Whenever it becomes necessary to spend time in hotels, airports, and aircraft, obstacles present themselves at every stage. Handling luggage throughout the trip, navigating through airports with oxygen equipment, and dealing with the logistics of rental cars or transportation at the destination create so many issues that make staying at home an attractive option. Item 3, the symptoms get progressively worse over time. That is why avoiding exacerbations is so important to alphas. I've been actively involved with an exercise regimen for over 30 years now, and have come to the conclusion that a regular and intense workout with cardiovascular and resistance training is essential to my general health. I have participated in a pulmonary rehabilitation program, classes on healthy diets and proper nutrition. I believe I can increase my longevity by actively participating in my own long-term treatment of this genetic condition, and in concert with each current or future medical treatment, enjoy an active lifestyle within the limitations of this disease. Item 4. The disease progression and knowing that one serious exacerbation with pneumonia can lead to serious consequences and even death. I'm concerned about the availability of healthcare options going forward. It appears that some treatments could be curtailed in the future for political convenience and funding constraints. I will spare you my rant over paying for everyone else's care over the years and now facing those issues myself without a sympathetic ear. I applaud your efforts to fast-track for the cure for alpha. My sister Carol, who's also a ZZ, died on January 15th of this year as 8 years old, just a year older than I. And in my never-to-be humble opinion, she left this earth whimpering in submission and unable to breathe. I have looked through the open door at my own fate and have just like alpha, quitting is not in my DNA, and giving in to my ultimate fate will not be of my own choosing. I realize that my alpha has a past that has taken its toll on my parents and siblings, and it is the future of this disease that can, and grandchildren will spend their lives dealing with all of the condition, but I disagree. It will multiply with each generation and could become as common as diabetes and arthritis. It would be my honor and privilege to be a part of this effort to find better treatments and eventually a cure for alpha-1. I can't think of a better legacy than to leave this life having fought to this end. Thank you for the opportunity to share my experience with you today and to be part of the search for a cure for alphas everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jim?
Alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. And I'd like to thank the FDA for giving me and others the opportunity to be here this morning to share our stories. However, I can't tell my story without first telling who have succumbed to this condition. First and foremost was my mother at the age of 46. Then my brothers Bill and Jeff, both 47, dying of alpha-1 related lung and liver disease. Following them was my sister Anne Marie, who was 46. And at the age of that young age of 46, she passed away from alpha-1 lung disease complicated by diabetes. And then probably our most devastating loss was my nephew Jeffrey, at the age of 2, who passed away from alpha-1 liver disease. And that terrible tragedy of Jeffrey was almost repeated again when his sister Amy, at the age of 3, was diagnosed with alpha-1 related liver disease. But she was able to fortunately get a liver transplant, and she's now living well and happy in her 20s. Due to the extensive family history of alpha-1, I was diagnosed. My 2 sons, who I adore greatly, are both MZ carriers of alpha-1, and 4 of our 5 grandchildren, are diagnosed MZ as well. After my diagnosis in 1980, I became symptomatic in 1988, and was placed on a lung transplant list in the year 2006. Post-transplant, I retired from my career in education due to the environmental risks that accompany anyone that works in an elementary school setting. And for someone with a post-transplant and the Alpha-1 Foundation. It was not until 1988 that I experienced the initial symptoms of lung disease, which included shortness of breath, wheezing, productive coughing, and anxiety. And I'm sure many in the room can relate to those symptoms. These symptoms continued to worsen over time. I would say that shortness of breath, exhaustion, and anxiety caused by the inability to breathe were perhaps the ones that had the most impact on my life. Prior to transplant, and as a young father of 2 active sons, and as an elementary school teacher and educator and principal, my ability to participate in activities that active children like to do was severely impaired. I did not want to deny my family or children of opportunities because of my condition, and I certainly did not want to give up a career that I truly loved in the field of education. So I was determined to look for ways to adapt so that I could be involved as much as possible, engaging in sports, going on family trips and vacations that required any type of walking, climbing stairs, etc., not only presented challenges and careful planning, but also resulted in severe anxiety. Therefore, I would often go ahead of time before I would even involve my family in those events or even tell them that I was planning them to be sure that I could handle them so I wouldn't hold them back. Each day had to be carefully planned and orchestrated. Routine household chores, taking out the trash, completing small fix-up jobs, even the simple task of changing a light bulb became too difficult or challenging to do. My wonderful wife and caregiver lovingly accepted these responsibilities as many spouses of alphas often do. In spite of augmentation therapy, pulmonary rehabilitation, eventually I required supplemental oxygen, which presented additional challenges for the workplace as well as for daily living. The personal challenge of wearing oxygen in public as a young father and as an educator was very difficult for me. I finally overcame that struggle by actually involving the children in my elementary school in a school-wide assembly program where everybody shared how they're unique and special. The children showed how they were dealing with their asthma, their diabetes, and all of the other things that kids sometimes have to be challenged to, and I shared my challenge of oxygen in the assembly setting. And that was a breakthrough day for me and the kids at the school. It was a great event. My condition finally reached a point where on a waiting list. I was given my gift of new life in 2006. Although I have been given that gift, I continue to be someone with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. I continue on weekly infusions to keep my new lungs protected. I have liver disease, organ rejection, and the future health of my family and grandchildren who are affected by this condition. In fact, I'm very concerned about everybody here in the room and every alpha out there. Although there are augmentation therapies available designed to halt the progression of lung disease, and there are a multitude of therapies to help with shortness of breath, there is still a lot more to be done. It is my hope that the development of new therapies are supported and expedited. Alpha and liver disease needs our attention now. Effects of this and progresses rapidly. Drug development and quick approval of therapies needs to happen as soon as possible, so families such as mine do not need to experience the anguish and heartache of seeing those in the beginning and prime of their lives succumb to such a devastating disorder. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you, Jim. Richard?
Hello, my name is Richard Johnson. My wife, Sarah, and I are the parents of Grace 9 and Lucas 7. They are both Alpha 1. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of all people affected by Alpha 1. I've been asked, is this a kid disease? And I will submit to you, all these gentlemen and lady at the front and everyone sitting in this room were Alpha 1 kids at one time, but were not diagnosed. It's an important day for all of us. Our lives changed 7.5 years ago when my youngest son, Lucas, had a complicated birth, which led him to being admitted to an NICU. And in fact, they sent him home saying it looks like his bilirubin is normalizing. If it wasn't for Sarah and I's diligence in pushing the pediatricians to continually check the bilirubin, I don't know if we'd ever had the diagnosis of Alpha 1. We went through many tests with Lucas before we identified Alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency. In my travels and speaking about Alpha 1 all across the country, I've met with parents that have had their children's livers biopsied, had surgeries, and it's really a shame because in this day and time we have a finger prick blood test that will identify Alpha 1. The pediatric community needs to get on board and look for Alpha 1 by doing a simple blood test. When we identified Lucas as being an Alpha 1, the doctors came to us and said that we all needed to be tested. So Sarah, myself, and Grace did the blood test, sent it in to see if we were alphas. I never forget the day that Sarah came in from the mailbox, and she had 3 envelopes. 2 were mine and Sarah's, and they were normal envelopes. Grace's was a big envelope. We just looked at each other and we just knew we had another alpha one. Excuse me. After Lucas was diagnosed, we went through a lot of turmoil in our family, but we started reaching out to other family members to ask that they be tested. This is a very difficult process. A lot of family members will say, that's not in my family. That can't come from our family. But through identification of different carriers and different genetic testing, I truly believe I had an uncle that died in his early 50s from COPD. He was jaundiced his whole life and was diagnosed with COPD in his early 40s. It's been a long road that we've traveled, and it's a very difficult process to be worried about your kids and their liver disease. Lucas is not doing as well as Grace. Grace, you would not even know has alpha-1. Lucas's liver enzymes run 4 to 5 times normal. He's 7 years old now. He would be running around all over the room right now. But he has a failure to thrive. At 7 years old, the last appointment we went to, he weighs 39 pounds. And if you know the growth chart, he is not even on the growth chart. The GI physician suggested that we may need to look at an NG tube to supplement his nutrition. So we very much worry about Lucas's health. It is important that we continue our liver research. I noticed that when we did a polling question, only 3% of patients answered that they were liver affected. But I will tell you that of them, because that's how we find them. One of the things I would like to stress is that a lot of times the infants become normalized with their liver enzymes. And I would stress to parents, don't forget that your child has alpha-1. Just because the liver enzymes have normalized, you still have a patient or a child that's going to be a 30 or 40 that we find a cure for this disease. We're sitting in this room today, and we want to find a cure. We don't want to find another augmentation. We don't want to find something that will just help the liver. We want to find a cure. And I would submit to you that I want to be here one day at the next FDA meeting when we're talking about the approval of a cure for alpha-1. I've had 25 years of my career has been in healthcare. I currently sell a cancer drug that patients 10 years ago would have died from their disease, chronic myeloid leukemia. They would have died from their disease in a year or two. Now those patients are taking a pill once a day, and they're probably going to die of a heart attack or a car accident, more than likely their CML. I know we can do this with alpha-1, and I would like to just thank you for this opportunity. And on behalf of Grace, Lucas, and other parents that I've met in this room that are representing their children, thank you for letting us participate.
Thank you so much for that. Henry?
Good morning. My name is Henry Mooring, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with you this morning. I'm 56 years old and have alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. I'm a primary liver-affected ZZ alpha. However, over the past few years, I've started to develop some lung-related symptoms. I was initially diagnosed in 1997 after about 2 years of testing. I'm generally healthy and able to work. I'd like to start with the last question first. What worries me? Because I think that's the most important message. And the message that I want to leave you with is simple. We need to find a cure for alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and we as a rare disease community are strongly committed to that mission. Until we find a cure, we need treatments for the liver aspect of this disease and faster testing and drug approval process so I don't have to, so we don't have to lose any more friends to this disease. In the next few minutes, I will try to share a bit about my alpha-1 experience and what matters to me as an alpha. I don't experience any outward physical symptoms due to my liver disease. I have chronically elevated liver enzymes and some cirrhotic changes based on my last biopsy. In the past few years, I've developed some mild bronchiectasis and COPD. I experienced some shortness of breath climbing stairs or hills. I'm sensitive to airborne chemicals, and have a chronic, sometimes productive cough, particularly in the mornings. While frustrating, my lung symptoms are mild and controlled with inhalers. Cannot walk as fast as most of my friends, and I currently require no augmentation therapy. There's no cure for alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. There's no treatment for the aspects of this disease, for the liver aspects of this disease. My father died of liver failure, and I'm challenged by the thought of what my family's future will be. Other than some lifestyle changes that I've made and continue to work on, there's nothing clinically that I can do about my disease. This thought worries me. However, I have my faith and a strong support system to help me manage. I benefit from the most current information on Alpha-1 through the Maryland Alpha-1 Support Group and the Alpha-1 Foundation. This is a genetic disease. I've passed the Z gene on to my 23-year-old son. As a father, I want the best for my son. However, I was the one that got to tell him he has a genetic deficiency. He is an MZ, currently has no symptoms, but the potential is there. He will someday marry and have children, and the gene will continue to be passed through our family. This too is an emotional burden, but we are blessed that he remains healthy today. The fact that I live with a disease with no cure or treatment is a challenge. I've chosen to get involved with the Alpha-1 community and the Alpha-1 Foundation and its mission to find a cure as my way of overcoming this challenge. Research must continue, and alphas understand that without research, there will be no cure. I've enrolled in the research registry and been part of 3 research programs in the past. I'm currently enrolled in the 5-year lineal liver study. I'm willing to take informed risk to move us toward a cure. My son and his future family are a significant part of my willingness to participate. We need to find a cure for this disease so that no other generation has to face the challenges of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. My one concern is that we as a country seem to have unintentional barriers to research and drug testing. The approval process is lengthy and costly. Science, public safety, and benefit to the alpha-1 community must be reasonably balanced. I ask you today to review this process so that as promising tests and treatments are developed, they can move forward in this country without undue delays and barriers. In closing, let me restate the message that I started with. It's simple. We need to find a cure for alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and we as a rare disease community are strongly committed to that mission. Until we find a cure, we need treatments and tests for the liver aspect of this disease and a faster drug approval process so that we don't have to lose any more friends to alpha-1. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel today. I look forward to continual working relationship with the FDA as we journey together to a cure.
Thank you, Henry. John?
Hi, my name is John Walsh, and like everyone on the panel, I'm pleased to be able to participate in this panel discussion to really share our experience with the effects of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency that matter most to us. I applaud the agency for conducting this series of patient-focused drug development meetings and including alpha-1 in this important process. The rare disease community struggles to get new treatments or delivery methods, so the focus of the FDA on rare disease drug development is absolutely essential. The alpha-1 community looks forward to how the FDA will use today's session to inform the next phase of drug development. And we want to participate in the next phase of patient-focused drug development with the FDA because the end goal is to engage the patient, to involve the patient. To have a cure, we need scientists, we need companies that are willing to spend the money to be able to develop therapies, and we need the FDA to help make that all happen. And we need individuals with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency to participate in clinical research, and our community has proven that we can do just that. Not about us, without us. I was symptomatic at the age of 35 when I got back from overseas and was diagnosed with allergy-induced asthma. A lot of us with asthma, a lot of us with alpha-1, about 73%, present and are initially diagnosed with asthma, and takes years to get a proper or complete diagnosis. When we turned about 40 years old, in 1989, my twin brother Fred, the good twin, called me up and said that he had received information about what was going on with us because we compared notes. He had the same symptoms, same diagnosis of asthma, and that he had been diagnosed with this genetic form of COPD called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. You know, without his diagnosis, I probably would have gone another 10 years before I got diagnosed, but I went right over to NIH where there was a study which was a phase 4 requirement by the FDA on the first drug approved for alpha-1 augmentation therapy, and was able to get connected right away and get my diagnosis confirmed. Without that phase 4 requirement, I would probably be another 10 years along before I was diagnosed. Without the FDA's vision and acceptance of approving augmentation therapy based on biochemical efficacy, I don't think I'd be here today. I've been on augmentation therapy since 1993, and I'm at 90 milligrams per kilogram as opposed to 60 milligrams, which is the package insert. And Ross Pierce said earlier, we need to know what dosage we should be on to be effectively treated. If I'm on 60 milligrams or less, I'm sick every time I get on an aircraft. So it's critically important that we address that question once and for all. You know, I have I have to say my most severe symptom, or my most obvious symptom, is the shortness of breath on any exertion, even limited exertion. And it's when you can't breathe, nothing else matters. It's had a significant impact on my daily existence, my inability to keep up with peers, play sports, do aggressive exercise, carry heavy objects, and even walk and talk at the same time are a constant reminder of my condition. I used to be a frequent exacerbator, and yet I was sick 4 times a year, sometimes hospitalized, and oftentimes not able to continue to work. And until I started my regimen of zithromycin Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That stopped it, hadn't had an infection in 43 months. So we need to explore how to use our therapies and definitely be as vigilant as possible to be adherent to therapies that our physicians prescribe. Prior to the onset of progression of symptoms, I lived a very active life and had very few limitations. My first dramatic breathing problem was when I was scuba diving in the Red Sea, and I thought I was going to die. And unfortunately, many of us with alpha-1 have that moment, whether it's skiing on the slopes or whether it's a real severe exacerbation that turns into pneumonia and hospitalization, that triggers our awareness about alpha-1, and oftentimes, but not always, unfortunately, leads to a diagnosis. Losing the ability to function continues to be a gradual transition for me. Not being able to play sports and inability to carry heavy objects were the first activities that limited my shortness of breath. The walking up inclines such as stairs, as Jim has shared, and in airports. I travel a lot. It's really tough, and you're looking at floor surfaces. These carpets aren't really friendly to somebody that has to use oxygen. I use supplemental oxygen when I sleep, when I exercise, and when I fly or at altitude. Being able to manage the logistics of having supplemental oxygen, as has already been shared, is a real challenge. Do you have enough oxygen? Are you on the right liter flow? Do you have enough batteries? Are you going to be able to get oxygen when you go to your final destination? Carrying luggage is a struggle. Having to have a CPAP, which is related to my lung condition, as well as a portable oxygen concentrator, as well as, for a long period of time, a percussion ventilator, made travel real challenging. So I just look to the day when I'm probably not going to be able to travel at all unless we get the technology, the community, the device manufacturers to focus on delivering more effective drug delivery systems and being able to connect that pulse oximetry level directly to our oxygen delivery devices. So we're getting the right liter flow at the right time when we need it. Seeing my twin brother Fred deteriorate is devastating. And losing so many friends to Alpha-1, is a constant reminder that that's my future. And that's what I think about. I think it's critically important that we all focus on what our families are going through, and the Alpha-1 community has certainly created a support network of alphas serving alphas to support each other. But I don't know if I can be as resilient as Freddie. When I get to his stage, I still have 34%. He's less than half of me, and he's a hero. He's my hero. I don't know whether I'll be able to continue doing what he does day in and day out when I reach that level. My diagnosis and subsequent active involvement in the Alpha-1 community has really changed my life completely. So the most impact of Alpha-1 in my life is that it's given me an opportunity to work with our Alpha-1 community and build a research program and make certain that we take care of each other. And we're so proud that we have such a great presence here today and also on the internet. We're not satisfied with status quo. We want the next generation of augmentation therapy to be easier to deliver. Aerosol makes good sense to us. It hasn't happened yet. We want novel therapies that will stop the progression of lung disease. We need therapies for liver disease. We have companies that are developing, that are in trials right now in Europe and Australia for liver therapies. We ask that the FDA really focus and work with us, and we know they will, on designing clinical trials for liver disease related to Alpha-1. So we need to do more. We need to do it. We need to do it quicker, and we need to accelerate therapeutic development and approval for Alpha-1 therapies. And I know I went over my time. My apologies, Donna.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charlotte.
And I'm supposed to follow this? Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here to represent the Alpha community. My name is Charlotte, and I'm one of the faces of Alpha-1. I'm a 71-year-old widow, and I have 2 children. I was diagnosed approximately 28 years ago. We kind of played in the same pool at NIH, so to speak. But I have to tell you about how I got diagnosed. I had chronic bronchitis for a number of years. Went to my GP. He sent me to a pulmonologist because we couldn't figure out what was wrong. Pulmonologist ran some tests, called me back into his office. And I sat there and he said, "Well, hi, Ms. Madison. I hate to inform you, but you have this rare disease called Alpha-1 Antitrypsin Deficiency." He informed me I had 2 to 4 years left to live, and he advised me to go home and get my affairs in order. When I left his office, one of my first thoughts was, I'll never see my children get married, and I may never see my grandchildren born. Needless to say, today, both of my children are married, and I have 9 beautiful grandchildren. And a granddaughter who just got married, so maybe I'll make great-grandma before time's out. I spent my life working 35 years in the pre-hospital medical field as a paramedic and in the emergency room of a local hospital. And I now teach at one of the local colleges in the pre-med area, teaching them how to assess patients and how to decide what's wrong with them, and boy, do I push Alpha-1. Without my oxygen on, and I'm on oxygen 24/7, 365, supposedly when I behave myself, my condition shows very little outward signs, as was said before, of a disability. However, if I walk through a door where someone has been smoking outside at the designated smoking area, where cigarette smoke lingers, past a perfume counter. Oh yeah, walk through the flower shop. All of these, anywhere fragrance is, can cause a very bad spasm of the alveoli in my lungs and brings on a great shortness of breath crisis. Shopping is no longer my favorite hobby. For me as an alpha, the ability to fight off infections and inflammations is also a problem. However, 4 years ago, I was put on the same therapy John was of erythromycin 3 times a week, and I have been infection-free for 4 years. Love it. I own a home with 2 acres of land, and I used to work in my yard, my flower garden. Loved it. Now when I cut my grass on my riding lawnmower, I have to wear a mask and put my oxygen tank between my feet on the power mower. Weeding my flower garden ain't going to happen. Many of you may take it for granted, well, not the alphas in the room, but the FDA personnel. I take that for granted. It is a total impossibility for me because I do not have the stamina to do that. A couple of things that impact my life. Emptying my washing machine and putting clothes into the dryer take 10 minutes maybe. Not me. I take 20. Then I have to rest and catch my breath for 10 more minutes. Walking up hills, carrying groceries, picking up my grandchildren, attending family functions. All of these are impacted by my lack of breath due to my alpha-1 condition. I want to participate in all of the family functions, and I want to participate in the foundation functions, but sometimes the endurance that I need is not there. When one uses oxygen as I do, mobility does become a major problem. The green tanks, and I'm not going to repeat the travel stuff, I've been there, done that. The green tanks are very heavy. We can't carry anything, and then they hand us a tank that weighs more than a bag of groceries. Liquid oxygen is lighter and lasts longer, but because it is more expensive, it is not always available, either due to insurance reimbursement issues or financial issues within the family. For those of us with alpha-1, stress, daily stress, is a factor that impacts our life on a daily basis. Environmental issues, financial concerns, the lack of family nearby to assist with daily needs. My children live way away from me. All this adds to a level of anxiety for many of us. Travel's difficult. We mentioned it earlier. It can be a nightmare to travel by air. I just got back this year from California. I won't tell you about my trip. Traveling by car also is difficult sometimes because you've got to cart a concentrator, your oxygen, your medication, your CPAP machine, whatever, along with the luggage you would take. And this becomes a real chore. Like the others, I tend to want to stay home, but I don't. Walking is even more difficult and presents more concerns for us as alphas. We can't walk distances. I used to hate using my handicap sticker, and now I use it all the time because I can't walk that parking lot. If I'm walking and there's stairs involved, I don't walk that way. If there are entrances that are not handicap accessible, I can't get into some buildings sometimes. I have been known to push my way through, but that's me. Hills, inclines, and other things really give us a problem. Oops. What worries me the most is the loss of my independence and inability to care for myself and to be an active participant with my family. The loss of the control of my choices for treatment that are limited either due to they're not there, insurance issues, etc. We need those preferred treatments to find a way to get this condition under control. Financial considerations and limitations also may be put on us as alphas because, you know, you're alphas. We don't fit the box. We don't fit in the box. To sum it up, we need early diagnosis to give us a chance for lifestyle changes that can elongate our years that are good. We need physician education about the current knowledge we have of alpha-1 and the current treatments that are available. We need better research guidelines and avenues of access to the new treatments that are coming out. This is going to help all of us to stay healthy and become a benefit to society and to our families. My real hope is that we can come together and fix this for my children, for my grandchildren, all of your children and grandchildren, and the future generations, to give them a better quality of life and the ability to be beautiful, good, valuable citizens in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think our panelists did a great job of sharing their experiences. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to introduce Liz Johnson. She's going to present the first part of the survey results.
Good morning, can you hear me? Thanks. So I want to introduce myself. I'm a lung-affected alpha, and the foundation asked me to present some of the results of the survey that many of you have participated in. If you haven't, it's still going to be on the foundation website for another couple of weeks. The survey went out to the community on August 11th, and there have been over 1,400 responses so far. And the foundation will still be accepting more surveys for the next couple of weeks. So back to the survey, what we have so far in terms of demographics. 86% of the people are diagnosed as alphas, 9% are caregivers, and 6% are parents of children with alpha-1. 80% are lung affected, 6 are liver affected, and 14 are both liver and lung affected. As we know, alpha-1 is a disease that can hit people at any time. The survey reflects experiences of alphas from 6 weeks to 87 years old. 9% of the respondents were, or the alphas were from birth to 30 years old, 45% from 31 to 50 years old, and another 45% are 50 and older. For the lung-affected alphas, they shared what symptoms affected them most. Nearly 100% reported shortness of breath during daily activities. 38% reported shortness of breath at rest, having a significantly or extremely significant effect on their lives. And here are some of the things that they said. Even moderate physical activity, like vacuuming the house, makes me take deep, measured breaths as if I was doing aerobic activity. Simple things like dressing and washing myself, walking, bending down to tie my shoe. Sorry, I have to get to page 2. Getting out of bed is a chore most of the time because of shortness of breath. Another person added that just unloading the groceries causes me shortness of breath. A grandparent said that shortness of breath impacted her playing with her granddaughter. Another said, when you're an alpha, at some point, through loss of lung function, take care of yourself becomes a full-time job. In my case, I can no longer do any of the things I once cherished. But rather than focusing on what I can't do, now I focus on what I'm still able to do. Liver-affected alphas reported that 71% had abdominal pain and 69% have abdominal swelling. Some of those people said, my liver symptoms include enlarged spleen and resulting low platelet count. I currently have fluid retention and abdominal swelling and shortness of breath. I've been told I need further liver evaluation, as I've had continuous right upper quadrant pain for years without relief or change. One person indicated that with regard to liver symptoms, tests reveal significant fibrosis. Some radiologists see early cirrhosis. I understand that I'm at significant risk for liver cancer, and that's my major concern. I wasn't aware of the seriousness of the liver disease of alpha-1 until I was told I need a liver transplant. Also, my lung function is only 40%. A parent of a child with alpha-1 who was diagnosed shortly after birth said, as a parent, I was devastated that I might lose my baby. It was a very scary time. Hospitalizations have a serious impact on all alphas, preaching to the choir. 73% of all alphas have been hospitalized, particularly before being diagnosed and starting treatment. And in addition to the stress and the health impacts on these individuals and their families, time off from work for patients and caregivers, these costs also impact insurance and healthcare spending overall. One patient reported multiple heart and lung complications caused several misdiagnoses. It required constant short and long visits to the ED and hospitalization. As for social implications, they're serious. 70% of the alphas in the study reported experiencing bouts of depression and anxiety. One person said, I no longer work at the level of my education and ability. My friendships have suffered because of the severity of my health. Another person said, I have no life with this disease since I was 36, and that's a shame. With reduced daily physical exercise and severe limitations on travel and vacation, depression has entered my household. What is worse, my wife is watching our life together change our lives dramatically. One caregiver expressed sorrow that she can't do many things with her husband anymore. The survey asked respondents about their concerns. The number one concern shared by nearly every respondent at 90% was a fear of their symptoms worsening and progressing. Many are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Parents are so worried about their children's futures. Here are some quotes from them. A 21-year-old with lung involvement said, I am so young. What if I need a lung transplant later on? Another said, ultimately, my biggest concern is the worsening of my condition to the point where it shortens my life. Will I die before reaching retirement age? What of my family? Another said, I feel like a ticking time bomb, not sure when the symptoms might show themselves or worsen. I try to stay as healthy and active as I can while I can. Alphas have to be warriors every day. So, thank you very much. The discussioning is coming up next, and when we can share our stories about living with alpha-1. Thank you.
Now I get to fulfill my fantasy of being a microphone holder. Usually at public meetings I start singing, but I've been forbidden to do this, so I'm going to ask Chris to hold this. So at this point, what we're going to do is, click. Can you go to the next slide? We're going to start asking some questions. So go ahead and pick which of the following symptoms have a significant impact on you or your loved one's daily life. While everyone's voting, how many of you have heard at least some of your experience expressed in at least one of our panelists today? So that's nearly everyone. Give just a few more minutes to do. You can check all that apply. We'll give it just a little bit more time. If you're on the web, you should have the same polling question. I know that not everyone's had a chance to vote, but we'll go ahead and close it now. What are our results? They certainly may if someone wants to give them theirs. Shortness of breath is our number one, followed by chronic cough. And then if we look at our top three in this group, anxiety or depression, what is the web?
Yeah, on the web we have a shortness of breath predominantly. Then we have chronic cough and production of phlegm. And then we also have the anxiety and depression. And weight gain when taking steroids like prednisone. Those are the predominant ones.
Okay. I forgot to add, we're going to ask the operator to open the phone lines. And if we have time, we'll take a call from, get results there. So if you've experienced multiple symptoms, which symptoms has had the most impact on your life? Does someone like to share? Oh, great. Got two people here.
I would have to say shortness of breath has definitely been a huge impact on my life. Starting at the age of 35, I was no longer able to work. I was no longer able to do the activities that I enjoyed with my children. I was no longer able to be intimate with my partner. It's very sad to be old at a young age.
Thank you for that. Just, I think you had something you want to say. And can I remind you to say your name?
Sure. I'm Del Witcher, and I'm from Alabama. I'm a pretty healthy alpha. I'm very fortunate. I was diagnosed because of liver enzymes being raised, but I'm in pretty good shape, but I have bronchiectasis. So for me, even though I don't have to be on augmentation therapy, I don't have the shortness of breath, I have the chronic cough and have had it for most of my life. So much so that my siblings say if they're in a Walmart and hear me cough, they can tell it's me from way across the store because I get sick really frequently. I always have a very productive chronic cough that's very deep. So like many of the people up there, I have to take azithromycin 3 times a week to try and prevent exacerbations like that, because also like them, every time you get sick, it chips away at your lung function. So for me, while I don't have the problems that many people do, that constant chronic cough is a big one for me.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to speak?
Hello, Judith Vargasvila. I live in Concord, Massachusetts now. I cough a lot. When I was in university, I went to Queen's University in Kingston, Southern Ontario. It was an old building, and I coughed so much in the building that I could not sit in class. Quite often I had to get up because it disturbed the lectures, and I would sit outside on a chair and do my work. I could not actually work in the library because at that point I didn't have oxygen. I was young and foolish, and I had to borrow books, and made a special arrangement with the librarian to be able to take them into a room that had no furniture but a desk, and use them and then deliver them back. And I couldn't take a lot of the older books home because the dust in the older books would start me coughing, and I simply lost track. I couldn't read. So this coughing means that I can't knit now, and I can't do the fabric arts that I loved as well, because there are always dust mites and dust involved. And it involves, I can't shop freely in stores either, because some stores have inadequate ventilation, and sometimes the outgassing of plastics and materials prevent people from walking through the whole stores and making their own choices. Of course, the internet has helped a lot with that, but nonetheless, those of us who want to be present in their lives do suffer from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Take one more comment on this, and then we'll go to another topic.
I wanted to mention one thing about impact. You noticed on the panel only 2 individuals, I believe, mentioned their work. And the reason that most of us don't mention our work is that we have become unable to work and oftentimes forced into disability. That was my situation. That I worked for a large chemical company, spent 12 plus years getting my education, and I could not take the chance of not doing a good job and losing my job, because back when I retired in 1996, I would not have been able to get another job. So I think that's one thing that has a serious impact on all alphas.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, what are specific activities that are important to you that you cannot do at all or as well as you would like because of your condition? Is that a hand? Can you get? Okay, we'll have the microphone coming to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Chakravorty from Nashville, Tennessee. One activity that I've had to give up completely is dancing. For many years, actually for 7 years, I did flamenco dancing, and it's totally off of my radar now. Although I do exercise, I can no longer exercise at the level that I previously did, and this not only affects my physical well-being, but also my emotional well-being, insofar as dance was one of the ways in which I expressed myself. I'm also unable to sing. I did sing, and now that's a memory. And strangely enough, I can't get into verbal arguments with people. So I can't shout, and I just have to stand there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Robert Stoker. I'm from Derry, New Hampshire. Lung affected. I'm one of the fortunate ones in that I had a transplant last year. And I was down to 7% FEV1. Still worked. My company was really upset with the fact that I carried oxygen into an office. I worked for a drug company. Hey, guys. You know, I was on the other side, and the dark side, if you will. But that was one of the things that I lost, that I couldn't do anymore, was because even with the Americans with Disabilities Act, it's a joke. You know, they say you can do this and you can petition all you want, but when, you know, push comes to shove, they'll always find a way to get rid of you. And they did. So, but that was fine. It just meant I had more time with the family. But the thing I miss most during the early years of my lung disease was not being able to play with my daughter. We'd go to the beach. We'd go on vacation. I was the dad that always sat back and watched mom play with the kid. I was the one that sat back while the uncles played with my daughter, because every time I tried to go out and play with her, I'd get her halfway up to throw her into the pool, and I'd be gasping for air. So that's how it affected me. I missed out on those days. Now I can do it, but at 27, she's not real into daddy. You know? Now it's like, Dad, help me move. Dad, help me do this. So that's what I missed, and that's what I miss, you know, and knowing that I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I know many of us had to go through. And that's one of the reasons we're here, is to get that point across to you guys that something's got to be done. We can't just let this sit anymore. So.
Thank you.
What I have missed is my childhood. I was diagnosed alpha at 10 weeks old. I received a transplant when I was 8% of 5 or 8% of my liver function. I was so sick, and at the time in '95 when I had my transplants, they didn't have a good success rate in Boston. So they released my case. I went out to California, and this is right in my elementary, right in my middle school age. I missed all my friends' parties, functions, school events, field trips. I went to California. I got my transplants. I received 3 liver transplants within 21 days. I was in a coma, and I had to learn how to walk again. I didn't know if I was going to be able to ride a bike or drive a car when I was older. Also, it has also impacted me in another way. My father, who took care of me and my mom going through my transplants, now needs a transplant himself. So I find myself yet again not having a young adulthood because my father is fading fast, and I am now his PCA, and I take care of him 24/7. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for sharing that story. I know a lot of people in the room would raise their hand, but I want to give the web an opportunity. Is there any comments from the web?
We have some activities that people are also echoing from the room, problems with dancing, mowing the lawn, walking outside, trouble traveling. Others have also echoed the issue about being forced on disability. So we are getting some of the same kind of comments on the web.
Okay, thank you. Operator, is there anybody on the phone that can talk to this?
If you'd like to ask a question over the phone line, please press star 1 now. We have some coming in. One moment.
Thank you. Hello?
We have a comment from Amy Garcia. Your line is open.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for being there for those of us that couldn't make it. My name is Annie Garcia from Miami, Florida. I didn't hear anyone, and maybe you won't see me blush, talk about sex. But that is definitely one of the things has gone away with the inability to breathe. It's not very unsafe to be with an oxygen tank and let's put it up and let's put it down and oh my God. So to tell you the truth, the basic things that have been spoken are definitely something that I think that every alpha here and who is not here today feels as well. The gentleman that mentioned comment about the ADA, I couldn't agree more. I had a very high executive position, a very big company, and I was released from my employment because of my oxygen tank, othered in the upper echelons of business. And no boardroom likes to see problems of that nature. No boardroom likes to see that. And so with that, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for being there for us.
Thank you so much. And I don't think I'm telling tales, but there was a lot of nodding of heads, so I think you were speaking for a lot of people.
I am no longer able to mow my yard, do my gardening, shovel snow, or do exterior maintenance on my house because shortness of breath and so forth. So I've got to go through the hassle and expense of trying to find people to do those things for me.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have time for one more. Let me get back there. Thank you.
Hi. Can't believe I'm doing this. My name is Vanessa Lammers. My mom lives in Salem, Oregon. She just was listed last week for a liver transplant. She's very sick. I just got married this past month. My husband is amazing. He helps take care of her, but she was not able to help at all with the wedding. And so if any of you have kids who got married or grandkids who got married, and it's such an amazing process, it's great to be able to help. And she couldn't help. We planned our wedding for 1.5 years, and she wanted to do so many things for us and make centerpieces and be there on the day and be there in the morning and be there when I put my dress on. And she couldn't. She was in her room until right before the ceremony, and she was just exhausted the whole time. And her life echoes almost everything that everyone has said today. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. I know so many of you have stories that are similar. Is there any other we have? Okay. Thank you.
Mine's real short, as am I. But because of my lack of being able to do much, I was forced to move to a condo. Horrible. Horizontal condo. I always enjoyed having a house to do a little tinkering and taking care of the yard. That was out the window. So now I live in a condo.
Thank you. Okay, we'll have time for one more, and I saw her hand. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I'm Bob's wife. And from a caregiver standpoint, I mean, she was very well spoken, but I've been through this with my husband over 20 years. The first pulmonologist, mind you, told him he had a terminal illness. Go home. You won't see your daughter graduate high school. She's now 27. Luckily, I'm in the healthcare business, and I won't take, I won't take that. But it's not just that. We as a group are standing here. We're educating ourselves. We're trying not to be a pain in the butt, and yet we are a pain in the butt, and we're going to continue to be so because we need this for our families. I'm worried to death about my daughter because she's inherited part of the condition. And I don't see a lot being done about that either. So, thank you.
Thank you. We spoke a lot about the effects of the disease on your lungs. We really want to concentrate this next question on those who've been affected on their liver. Chris, could you do the next polling question? If you have liver disease, how many times in the past year did you or your loved one experience a bleeding episode that required medical attention? We'll give this just a little more time. The results coming in on the web as well. And let's go ahead and close it. I know not everyone had a chance, but we'll see. Oh gosh, it looks pretty even. And we didn't have numbers, so it looks pretty even. If someone who's experienced that could speak about the impact of these bleeding episodes. For the liver disease. Can anyone expand on the symptoms? Okay, we'll come back. I think our poll did show that we were much more representative by primarily lung disease. So.
Hi, everybody. My name's Vanessa Lammers. My mom lives in Oregon. She has had several bleeds. She had to have banding done through her esophagus. She's also had the TIPS procedure, which is a shunt that they put in the liver disease. If anyone wants to talk about that, I know all about it. And her most recent and worst bleed was a couple of years ago. She started vomiting in the middle of the night, and then she realized that she wasn't just nauseous. She gets nauseous a lot. I'm sure a lot of you know exactly how that is. She has the upper quadrant abdominal pain. And so she didn't really think much of it. She actually crawled back into bed and then woke up again and was vomiting like 45 minutes later, realized that it was blood, actually called her friend to take her to the hospital, and she got there and the physician admitted her and they banded her, and it actually worked out really well, but she was very lucky. The physician who admitted her told her that it's an 80% mortality rate for that type of bleed, which is potentially why you're not getting a lot of people getting up and talking about this.
Right. Well, we have one other person, and then we'll see what we have on the phone.
My name is D.C. Young. I'm going to speak for my brother. He is a lung-affected alpha. I'm a lung-affected alpha. We're not twins, like some people are. But he is a little more handicapped than I am relative to his lungs. But very recently, he has found out that he's definitely liver affected, and bleeding disorders are a major factor now in his life. He's been forced to completely change his diet. He's had to lose weight, and he's having severe problems with that. So those of us with lung disease, I think as we age, we're going to be looking at issues with livers if we don't get a solution to this whole problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Horsack, and I work for the Alpha One Foundation. I came to work for them after losing my 49-year-old husband unexpectedly to Alpha One liver disease. He was never diagnosed until his autopsy results came back. He suffered from esophageal varices bleeds. He was first diagnosed with an unknown liver disease 5 years before his death. They kept saying it was a form of hepatitis that hadn't been named yet. And he ended up going in for just normal blood work and was 6'2", about 275 pounds, and he had a hemoglobin of 4. So the nurse said, I don't know how you're standing up. They put him in the hospital. They ran all kinds of tests. Every quarter for the next 5 years, they would do endoscopy procedures, and they would band or sclerose those varices bleeds. And I answer the patient hotline at the foundation. And Alpha-1 liver disease may be a very small part of Alpha-1 patients, except it progresses very, very quickly. Somebody can be diagnosed and they can be dead in 6 months with Alpha-1 liver disease. We need a treatment for Alpha-1 liver disease.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Donna, I have some.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Jesse Strickland. I live in Ohio. We have a support group there, Alpha 1. And we just recently had a person who was liver affected in his 40s, MZ. He's not supposed to have liver disease as an MZ, but his doctor told him it was primarily due to Alpha 1. He had a liver transplant 3 months ago. He's doing great. My father died at age 81 with cirrhosis of liver and liver cancer. I'm an FM, and supposedly F doesn't cause liver disease. But I don't think there's been enough research to know if it does or not. FM is not supposed to cause emphysema, but I have emphysema. So Alpha 1 doesn't treat everybody the same. So doctors need to realize if there's an MZ and they have COPD, maybe they do need treatment. If they're an FM or FZ, or whatever they are, I think you have to look at conditions and what they're going through every day, their symptoms, and treat everybody, whether you're a carrier or full-blown alpha, on their symptoms.
Thank you. Thank you. Operator, is there anyone on the line that might want to speak to this?
If you'd like to speak to this, please press star 1 and record your name to signal to me. Again, that is star 1. One moment, please.
We know there's a little bit of a delay in this. And honey, can you go over to that gentleman? While we're waiting to see if someone comes on the line, we have someone in the room that will speak.
Hi, my name's Eric Butcher. I can't really speak to the bleed because I don't have varices yet. I haven't experienced that. But I am in stage 4 cirrhosis. I also have stage 2 emphysema. But my liver is currently compensating. The worst symptom that I deal with due to my liver currently is the anxiety and depression. Because I wake up every morning, it's like a sword of Damocles hanging over my head. Once that little piece of my liver stops fighting, I'll get really sick really fast. And I always wake up every day wondering if this is going to be the day. So there's a lot of anxiety and depression that is tied up with that.
Thank you. What do we have on the web?
Regarding liver, we have reports of high ANR, pain. One person has had a gastric bypass, and just, again, a limiting of activities.
Thank you. Did anyone come on the phone?
Yes, we do have Marvin on the phone. Your line is open.
Hello?
Hi, Marvin.
Yeah, my name is Marvin. I'm from South Carolina. Sorry I'm unable to join you there today, but I can echo most everything that's being said online, except for one thing. Sex is hard, but I'm not giving it up. Anyway, no, all the things you're talking about, simple things like walking up and down 4 or 5 steps, taking your trash out. There are times when I have to ask my wife to do it. I'm unable to do it. And I've been an athlete. I've exercised all my life. I used to be ranked in the top 15 in South Carolina in open tennis. And now it would be a joke to try and pick up a tennis racket or do anything athletic. But the disease does progress. It's slow, but the augmentation therapy does help. It slows the progression of the disease, and without it, I don't know where I'd be. I've been taking infusions every week for 22 years, and I appreciate everything that all the folks associated with Alpha 1 have done to help me, and the support group that I work with here in South Carolina has been outstanding, and it's been a blessing for me. Now we just need to work towards finding a cure, inhaler, pill, whatever it takes. We need a cure. Thank you for giving me time to come on today.
Thank you so much. I think that was foreshadowing of this afternoon, but while we're still in this morning, we're going to go to the next set of questions. We have 3 questions that are specific to the lung disease, and I'm going to ask each of them first and get the results from the polls, and then we'll come out to the audience and give you an opportunity to speak. So the first one is, thank you, how's your lung symptoms? And how many problems have you had in the past year? This is one of those tricky ones where A is 0 and B is 1, even though it has a 2 on it. So when you're voting, please make sure you're voting for the number you want by the alpha number you want. Okay, let's see what we have here. All right, so, well, clearly 4 or more has been the most, although we have the number of 16% for 2 and 1. They don't, I'm assuming 2 is 16% as well. Can you have a response from the?
Yeah, on the web, 4 or more is 45 or 46%, and 2 is about 21%. So we have people with, we have very few, 5% with 0. So the scores on the web are more skewed more towards more attacks.
Okay.
Which is why
right,
we're not
which
here
is
today.
actually what we expected. All right, question 8. Your lung symptoms in the past year, how many have required hospitalization? A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, D is 3, E 4 or more. Give you a little more time. Slowing down. Okay, let's see what that is. Well, I know there's more of you than 41, but we're going to see what the response is for those. Wow, something is telling me lots of no hospitalizations at all, and then 1. We're going to double check because the numbers aren't coming up here for us to do it. No, I just meant percentages are coming up. Well, excellent. We'll have time for that.
Yes, it echoes on the web. The 65% have not had any hospitalizations, and the rest 1 or less than 2. So the great majority have had less than 2.
And I'm sorry, I just meant the percentages above that would tell you that it was 65% said 0, not that I was questioning 0. So I apologize, I wasn't clear on that. Great. So let's try the next question 9 before we start our conversation. Okay, in the past year, how many required an emergency room visit or doctor's visit without hospitalization? So that's the key difference. Well, it's an or. So emergency room visit or a doctor's visit without hospitalization. So for those of you who are taking her advice, not going anywhere. Okay, Chris, what's our responses? Well, it looks 4 more, 1 and 2 are kind of similar responses, with the most being 0. What about on the web?
On the web, 0, 1, and 2 are about the same, with a little less than 3 and 4. So again, skewed maybe to the left a bit more.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, we've seen these results. Can anyone provide specific examples how these affect your day-to-day life? I can forget. Thank you.
I'm Paul Longmire from Washington State, husband of a double Z. I did 30 years of active duty in the military, been in more war zones than I know of, got 2 Purple Hearts. And I'll tell you what, there is nothing worse than sitting there watching her gasp for air and try to breathe. And I got a nebulizer in one hand, a TV thingy in the other hand, and my phone ready to dial 911. You know, it's tough to stand there, do nothing, and do nothing. The other side of it is our oldest daughter she's married to a soldier, just got back stateside, got 2 granddaughters that we can finally see. And I have to constantly watch her while she's out playing with a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old to make sure she can breathe. And make sure when she starts flushing and she can't catch her breath, to make her sit down and take a break, and, you know, so she doesn't go into a fit. I don't know what the heck you call them, but, you know, can't breathe. And I'll tell you what, it's a tough one. It's a tough one as a husband, caregiver, whatever you want to call it.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a couple over here.
Hi, my name is Liam. I'm from Massachusetts now, originally from Ireland, where a lot of people have alpha-1. And my last hospitalization was for pneumonia. And it took a long time for the doctors, must have been about 20 doctors in and out, to identify what it was I had. And they informed me after they had discovered it was Pseudomonas. They informed me that there was mold growing in my lungs. Yeah. That was very frightening to me. I had no idea that could happen. So I don't know if anyone else had that experience, but that was mine. And I was in, I don't know if I said I was in for 21 days, but it's a long time.
Thank you. Connie?
I'm Carla Laddick from Indiana, and I think one of the important things that you need to know is that most of us don't go to the emergency room because emergency room doctors don't know what alpha-1 is.
Thank you.
I'm Alice, and I'm from Massachusetts. And to the hospitalization, I think part of the reason is we do not go to emergency rooms is because we're so proactive and we're aware of what our conditions are. We take a lot of our own treatment and we go ask the questions. We contact our physicians. We say, we're not feeling well, this is what's happening to me. I was a nurse, I know a little bit more maybe. But it just takes our own fight individually in order to get and stay and maintain our lives, which is not easy when you're short of breath and you're trying to fight a cold or a sore throat or anything. And even to have to be sick and go to the doctor or go to an emergency room, you have to worry again about your oxygen and what's going to happen when you get there and how long are you going to have to sit. And so those are the things we fight, and we individually take care of our own health a lot of times.
Well, thanks for that, but I think that's a great jumping point to ask you more on what do you do if you're not going to emergency rooms or to the doctors? How are you handling these symptoms?
I think alphas are very, my name is Ruth Cadugan, and I think alphas are very educated about their condition and proactive, and their doctors have prescribed stuff because they have to start on antibiotics the minute they feel a tickle. And most people, alphas self-medicate because they know what they need to do. They've had to depend on it themselves. My husband was diagnosed 23 years ago, but I want to speak to the people who aren't here. We're the healthy ones. You have to look at this room and know that this is as healthy as it gets. It's the people that were on the conference calls who are so afraid
to get on a bus or a van and possibly not have their oxygen that couldn't be here today. But when you look around, this is as healthy as it gets. Thank you.
Please, thank you so much for sharing.
Donna, I have one back here first.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Mark Lance from DC, and I'm relatively healthy. I'm ZZ and I have emphysema, but I'm a competitive rower and kind of lucky in that way. But following up on this question, the other group that aren't here are the people that don't know they have this disease. I've taken to asking every physician I run into, and I run into a lot of them, and I've run across 30 to 40 in the last 6 months who've never heard of this disease. We do not have any regular testing in this country, despite the fact that lifestyle changes and environmental changes will make a bigger difference in a long-term prognosis than any treatment currently available, and the fact that a 1 year per person delay in infusion therapy will save $250,000. So blood tests look pretty cheap in that regard. As I see it, there's 100,000 people out there with lessened life expectancy because we don't do basic education and basic testing for this disease that we already know how to do, that don't require inventing new drugs. And I think that's appalling. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get just 2 more people. I know that there's a lot to be said, but we have a few more questions to get through, and a lot of this is topics we'll be talking about more this afternoon. So I would definitely want to hear what you have to say, so please don't think I'm cutting you off, but I am. Henry, real quick.
I guess I made the cut.
You and one other person.
My name's Henry Mooring, and I wanted to follow on one of the comments, and actually it flows that we're a rare disease community, and part of the reason you don't see us frequenting common health areas, docking the boxes, emergency rooms, because they don't know what we have. And even in my primary care office, every time I go in to see my doctor, which thank God is not that often because I am healthy, I have to reorient her to who I am, what I have, and I usually bring a stack of literature. I don't think she has time to read it, given the work that she does, but it's a challenge when, as a patient, I feel like I know more about what's going on with me than she does. And, there's an anxiety level there. I have a great provider. I have a great pulmonologist. I have a great liver doc that I can pick up the phone and talk with long before it gets to be a problem. And I think that's why you see the number there. I also have an AlphaNet coordinator that checks on me and goes, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Which is something that I can only speak for this particular alpha, but some of us need. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to ask one more person and go and see if we have any comments on the web.
Hi, my name is Allison Corin. I'm an MM married to a ZZ. I'm also a patient advocate, and I work with patients who are newly diagnosed with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. The question came up, what do you do rather than go to the hospital? And I'd like to speak on behalf of 3 of my patients who in the last 2 months didn't know enough about their condition to know what to do, and who went to the hospital and didn't come out alive because they had to wait too long to be properly diagnosed, and because they were in areas where their physicians and their medical facilities didn't have enough information about their condition to keep them alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to the web. What are you hearing there?
On the web, I just want to share that many people say they avoid the hospital because of the bacterial infections, especially methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. Some have feel that ERs are very dismissive, as you all have said. Other people try to keep a supply of antibiotics and prednisone, working with their doctor to have it available. So that's
okay. Great. And I was teasing. We do have one more person because I miscounted.
Hi, I'm Robin Bell. I'm from Bakersfield, California. I'm 46 years old. In regards to hospitalizations, last December, I had gone into urgent care. It was like 9 o'clock in the evening, and my urgent care doctor immediately sent me to the hospital. And by the time I ended up seeing an emergency room physician, he looked at me and he said, well, you know, what's the symptomology that brought you in here in the first place? And I said, first of all, I'm an LVN. I'd gone to urgent care, and he's under the impression that I had a pulmonary embolism. And he looked at me and he goes, why on earth would you think that you had a pulmonary embolism? Well, I've got alpha-1. No, you don't. It's super rare. No, you don't. And I looked at him and I said, oh. He said, well, you know, let's go ahead and do an x-ray on you and, you know, just check. So 2 hours later, you know, I ended up having a CT done. Sure enough, it came back that I had a pulmonary embolism. But in the emergency room, and having seen a physician that was that dismissive in regards to a situation such as just blowing me off because of a disease that's not as rare as everybody thinks it is, you know, it's just something that needs to be very much looked at and within the medical community.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to take a minute to ask about the effects of alpha-1 as you age. What are some of the surprising ways that symptoms of your disorder has changed as you've aged? Okay.
Well, again, I'm Bob Noonan from Virginia here. One of the things, again, is the shortness of breath. I go back to that because it's virtually everybody's biggest problem here. And as you do age, you have more shortness of breath, and there's more and more things that you can't do anymore. Golf, I miss that a lot. I say I can still hit the ball out of a golf trap, out of a sand trap, but I can't get myself out of the sand trap. So I would like to mention that we need more assistance in the development of better oxygen. When you age and you're short of breath, and all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but you can't breathe, oxygen is the answer. I mean, we all get the medicines and so forth, but if you have a good source of oxygen, you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do without it. And I just don't see it happening in the oxygen supply area, the ambulatory oxygen. There's got to be better devices. There's got to be something that would give what your blood oxygen is and would raise or lower the amount of oxygen that you're receiving as a result of what the blood oxygen is doing as you try to get yourself out of a sand trap or do something else. So I'd like to see faster and more advancement in supplemental oxygen for not only the alphas, but everybody else out there that's on oxygen.
Thank you. Okay, Lonnie, you have someone over there.
My name is Charlotte Brooks, and I'm from San Diego, and I would like to speak on my husband's behalf, whether he wants me to or not. We've been married for 57 years. I've watched him deal with chronic bronchitis, pneumonia, asthma for all those years, slowly getting worse and worse and worse. And through 4 pulmonary doctors, through countless GPs, nobody ever tested him until 3 years ago. 3 years ago, when he was 75 years old, he was finally diagnosed. He was put on augmentation therapy and got better, but not really that much better. His main component is bronchiectasis. He would cough. He missed years of our kids' and grandkids' lives because he couldn't go to plays or movies or soccer games or anything because he would cough and it would be so disruptive to them. In fact, he coughed so much he wound up with bilateral hernias. Finally, I'll make this short, he's on augmentation therapy and antibiotic therapy, and it's like a major miracle.
Thank you. Monica Blanc.
Look, one thing that I've noticed with the passage of time is the decrease in muscle mass. And although I work out quite a bit and do strength training, I still don't get as much bang for my buck as I did when I was younger. And I think that improving muscle mass would also increase my functionality. So I think that's another important effect of aging.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Hi, my name is Fred Walsh from Massachusetts. One thing that is nice to have, what it does to your ears is crazy too, by the way. Looking like Yoda. But one thing in particular is being close to a bathroom if you're real short of breath. As you age, things loosen up a little bit. And really, first thing I usually ask, where are the restrooms? And they're not too strategically located here. But that's basically it. It's just, when you have a choice to breathe or go, sometimes you just go. And it can be pretty embarrassing, especially if you're on an airplane. We're not on an airplane.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Gold. One of the things I've noticed as I've aged is my mother is a ZZ. I don't know what my genotype is because I have had my serum tested 3 times during 3 different health incidents and never received the results from the doctor's office. I was diagnosed as a young person with Joubert syndrome, which is elevated bilirubin, and we were told then that it was just a chronic situation that was essentially not going to affect my health, or lifespan, anything major, I guess. Then I was just in the hospital a couple of months ago with what they diagnosed. They couldn't figure out what my problem was, essentially. Gastric issues, I have pain, no bleeding, but just nausea. I've had ongoing pain with no real issues as far as enzymes are concerned for 15, 20 years. It's ongoing, meaning that sometimes it's more noticeable than others, but discomfort, I guess, is a better word. But my point is that as I get older, my concern that if this is something to do with alpha-1, first of all, I don't even know what my genotype is, although I have been assertive and tried to find out what it was. It just hasn't happened due to, from my perspective, the doctor's not taking it seriously enough to make sure that I get the results mailed to my home or that they even call me to let me know what they found the results to be. And then also, that being the situation, my concern is there something happening within my body that I'm not addressing, taking care of at this point? It feels like a crapshoot at this point, just because none of the doctors have kind of tied it together, even knowing that my mother is a ZZ lung transplant survivor.
Thank you for sharing. Thanks. We're going to have to wrap up, but I have one quick question that I want to follow up with. If anyone's a parent of small children, what are your biggest worries about their aging?
Hi, Dad. Bet you didn't think I grabbed this, did you? Ryan Johnson, Jacksonville, Florida. I'm actually the brother of, son of Richard Johnson, brother to Luke and Grace Johnson. Let me tell you, they're 7 and 9 years old, and they're every bit of that, wild and crazy. They're the most fun-loving kids in the world, and I'll tell you one thing that really breaks my heart from somebody who's not even affected. I don't want to see them grow up and end up like the people in these rooms. Let's get ahead of something. Let's put something in these people's hands that can affect assist them now, and let's do research to help cure those who have the liver issues and the enzyme issues and the lung issues. And let's get ahead of this and let's fix something that is very common. So thank you.
We'll take one more comment.
No. Having a little girl, I've got an 8-year-old, and she's an MZ, but at the elementary level, like Jim had said earlier, it's really hard when I'm a ZZ and she brings home, her little contaminants, for lack of a better term. Anyway, my biggest concern with having little ones, and she's also asthmatic, and I live in Bakersfield, where it's the worst air quality in the nation. So it's it's a constant thing, and then valley fever on top of it, in the valley. So it's worrisome, as every single parent in this room that has young children, and getting a handle on, different medications other than just inhalers for asthma. Something needs to be done.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of other comments, but we're running out of time for this morning, and so I don't want you guys to miss your lunch. We have a full afternoon of where if we need a little extra time, we can use that. Normally I would say time permitting. Does anyone else have something to say? But that's not time permitting with you guys, and you've been so forthcoming in your experiences, and I really want to thank you for that. We are going to break, and you'll have an hour for lunch, and we'll be right back here afterwards. A reminder that anyone who's interested, is there still space on the public comments? We believe so. If you're interested in signing up for the public comments period this afternoon, please go and see if there's still space available, because after this afternoon we're going to pull up the sign-up sheet, and the time will be based on how many people are there. Chris, I think there's another slide. Could you go to it? And one more. And before we break, we have one more. Karen Erickson wants to talk. Say something.
Hey guys, how are you? So a lot of incredible comments, and we want to keep that rolling. So we called in a favor from a big friend to the Alpha One community, and they happen to have brought an incredible video crew in to film your statements, how you feel about Alpha One, where we need to go. So as you mill around at lunch, they're in the last room as you come out here and make a left, and they're fantastic. We'll consent you in and then hear what you have to say, and it's going to be so powerful moving on. It has been all day today, so don't let those comments go unheard. And then finally, for any of you that want to stay in the room, we're going to set up some runners to go and grab your lunch if you want us to. So just go ahead and raise your hands, and we'll handle that as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see everybody back in an hour at 12:30.